The basement felt like the part of the house that never learned how to breathe. Cool air, old stone, and that faint smell of wood and dust that clung to secrets. The kind of place you went when you did not want anyone to see your face. Stefan stood in front of a storage shelf that looked untouched, which in the Salvatore house meant it had been touched very carefully. One box was pulled forward just enough to be wrong. He did not remember coming down here, that was the first problem. His hand went to his temple, a dull pressure sat there like a bruise you could not see. Compulsion did not leave fingerprints, but it left that feeling, like your own mind had been rearranged while you slept. Stefan slid the box off the shelf and set it on the workbench. It was taped shut with the kind of tape Damon used when he was trying to pretend he was organised. Stefan cut through it and opened the lid. Inside were a few meaningless things. A flask, a broken set of poker chips, a rolled-up tie Stefan had never seen Damon wear, and beneath it all, an old voice recorder. The cheap kind that looked like it belonged in a drawer, not in a vampire basement. He lifted it slowly, the weight of it wrong in his hand, like it already knew what it was about to do. Before we start, subscribe if you enjoy these Vampire Diaries stories, and after listening, tell me in the comments, do you think Stefan made the right choice in the end, or should he have chosen the other path instead? A strip of paper was stuck to the back, written in Damon's handwriting, sharp letters, no patience. Play this if you start digging. Stefan stared at it until his jaw tightened. Of course Damon had a contingency plan for Stefan being Stefan. He thumbed the switch. A soft hiss of static, then Damon's voice, lower than usual, stripped of the performance. "If you're hearing this," Damon said, "it means you didn't listen to me." A pause, not dramatic, real. Or you're Stefan, and you're already doing the thing where you pretend you want answers, when what you really want is punishment. Stefan's chest tightened, his grip on the recorder turned white. Damon breathed out, sharp. "I didn't have time to talk you down, I didn't have time to watch you spiral, I had time to make one decision before you did something that couldn't be undone." Static flickered, Damon's voice came back a fraction thinner, like it was recorded in a room that was too quiet. "I made a choice for you, Stefan." The words hit like a slap, because Damon did not say them like a villain, he said them like a confession. "You can hate me for it," Damon continued, "I'm used to that." Another pause, and then Damon's voice dropped even lower. "But if you remember, you're going to break yourself on it." Stefan swallowed hard. His mind felt like it was pressing against a locked door from the inside. Damon's voice softened, and that was somehow worse. "I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to call her. I didn't want to owe her." Stefan's eyes narrowed. Her. The recorder hissed again, louder this time, like the tape was being dragged under a nail. Damon started to say something else, and then the sound tore out, cut clean in the middle, as if someone had ripped the rest of the sentence away. Stefan jerked the recorder, thumb stabbing at rewind. The tape whirred back. He hit play again. Static. Damon's voice. "I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to call her. I didn't want to owe her." Cut. Same place. Same silence after. Stefan stared at the recorder like it had betrayed him. That was not an accident. That was a decision. Stefan's throat tightened, and he did not realise he was shaking until the recorder rattled faintly in his hand. Upstairs a floorboard creaked, a familiar step unhurried, like whoever was coming down already knew what Stefan had found. Stefan turned toward the stairs, and for the first time in a long time the anger that rose in him did not feel righteous. It felt personal. Stefan snapped the recorder off and slid it back into the box, buried under junk that looked harmless until you knew what it was hiding. He pressed the lid down, smoothed the tape over it, and shoved the box back on the shelf until it looked untouched. Footsteps on the stairs. Damon came down with a bourbon glass. Loose shoulders, lazy face, like the house belonged to him, and the night was boring. Stefan did not look at him for long. He just moved, reaching for the first thing that made sense, a cracked poker chip near the edge of the workbench. His fingers brushed it, and it slipped, clattering onto the floor. The sound cut through the basement. Damon's eyes flicked to the shelf, quick, instinctive, then back to Stefan, like he had checked something without meaning to. Stefan's stomach tightened. He bent to pick up the chip. Damon's voice stayed casual. "You always make a mess when you're nervous." "I'm not nervous," Stefan said, too fast. Damon took a sip, watching him over the rim of the glass. "Sure." Stefan straightened, the chip in his hand, and forced his voice steady. "I was looking for a bottle." Damon's mouth twitched. "In the box of junk, impressive." Stefan held Damon's gaze for one beat, then looked away, like he did not want to risk seeing too much. "I'm going out," Stefan said. Damon did not move. At this hour, Stefan nodded once. "I need air!" Damon's smile stayed in place, but it went thinner. "Try not to find anything you can't forget." Stefan froze for half a second, then covered it by walking. He passed Damon without another word, heading for the stairs, keeping his pace even, keeping his face blank, like he could outrun a sentence. Behind him, Damon spoke again, softer, almost to himself. "Put it back where you found it." Stefan did not turn around. He just kept going, and the basement felt colder with every step away. The rain had eased into a thin mist, the kind that made the streetlights look softer than they deserved to. Stefan stepped off the porch and did not look back. Not because he was brave, but because he could feel Damon watching him, and he could not afford to flinch again. The recorder sat in the basement box like a loaded memory, and Damon had just proved he knew, not what Stefan found, but that Stefan found something. Stefan walked fast, hands in his pockets, jaw tight, pretending the cold air was the reason he could not breathe right. He told himself he would not do the thing he always did. He would not spiral. He would not tear open old wounds until they bled into the present. He would be calm. But the word "her" echoed in his mind like a bruise you could not stop pressing. Stefan turned down the road toward town, and as he did, a flash of something hit him. Not a full memory, just a feeling, the sick drop of regret, the taste of iron. The sound of a laugh that did not belong to this night. He stopped, blinked, and it vanished. That was the second problem. Morning in Mystic Falls arrived like nothing bad had ever happened, like the town had not spent years burying bodies under normal routines. Cars rolled into the parking lot, students complained about homework, and the school's front doors opened like a mouth that kept swallowing the same day. Caroline Forbes was already in motion, holding a clipboard and a stack of flyers, her hair perfect, her expression focused, the kind of focus that could survive an apocalypse. She was directing two students with the sharp certainty of someone who had decided the universe would listen. "You," Caroline said, pointing. "Tablecloths go on the left. No, not that left. My left. And if you wrinkle them, I will haunt you." The students nodded and hurried off. Caroline turned and nearly collided with Stefan, who had appeared beside her like a shadow that did not want to be noticed. Caroline's eyes narrowed immediately, not at his clothes, not at his hair, at his energy. "Okay," she said, quieter now. "You look like you slept in a grave." Stefan forced a small smile and said, "Good morning to you too." Caroline held up her clipboard like a shield. "Do not deflect, I'm busy, which means I'm extra good at noticing when people are lying. And you are lying." Stefan glanced at the hallway, at students passing, at teachers pretending they liked mornings. Then he looked back at Caroline and kept his voice low. "I'm fine," Stefan said. Caroline stared at him for one beat. Then she leaned closer and said, "You have not been fine since last night, and I know that, because you missed my 3 texts and you never miss my texts unless you are dead, compelled, or doing something stupid." Stefan's throat tightened, and he kept his face calm because the word compelled felt like a hand around his neck. "I was out," Stefan said. Caroline's brows lifted. "Out where?" Stefan hesitated just a fraction. Caroline caught it immediately. "Stefan," he exhaled and said, "I needed air." Caroline's tone softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. "Air does not make you look like that." Stefan tried to shift the subject and nodded toward the flyers in her hand. "What is all this?" Caroline's posture straightened a little, grateful for any excuse to talk about her plan. Founders' Day, planning committee, event setup, donation list, themed display, and yes, before you say it, it is important. Because if this town is going to pretend it's normal, it is going to do it with matching centerpieces. Stefan managed a real half smile, small, brief, then it faded. Caroline watched him. "You promised you would help me set up the display in the gym, remember?" "I remember," Stefan said, and the words felt wrong in his mouth. Like a test he could fail. Caroline started walking, steering him down the hall as if she could physically guide him back into stable reality. "Good, because I already assigned you the heavy lifting. And also, you have opinions about history, which is weird, but useful." Stefan followed, trying to let the normal noise of the school fill his head, trying to keep the basement out of his thoughts. They reached a side door that led toward the gym storage, and Caroline fumbled for the key on her ring. As she did, Stefan's eyes landed on a poster taped to the wall, a faded Founders' Day announcement from years ago, the paper yellowed, the print old. One line near the bottom caught his attention, a sponsor name, a family name, written in neat block letters. He did not know why it mattered, but the moment he read it, his vision stuttered. The hallway noise dulled, the lights felt too bright, and the taste of iron returned, sharp and sudden. Caroline noticed instantly. "Stefan," she said. "Firm, look at me." Stefan blinked, and the world snapped back. He forced a breath and said, "I'm fine." Caroline did not buy it. "You just went somewhere." "I didn't," Stefan said, too quick again. Caroline opened the storage door and guided him inside, more protective now, less bossy, like she had switched from event planner to vampire who knew what a crack in someone's mind looked like. The storage room smelled like dust and old paper, boxes stacked high, folding chairs lined up like they were waiting for bad news. Caroline lowered her voice. "Tell me what happened." Stefan looked away and said, "Nothing happened." Caroline stepped in front of him, blocking the exit, without making it obvious. "Stefan," he swallowed, and the pressure in his temple returned, dull and steady, like a warning light. "I saw a name," Stefan admitted. Caroline's eyes narrowed. "What name?" Stefan tried to pull it back, but it was already out, and that made him angry, not at Caroline, at himself. "I don't know why it hit me," Stefan said, but it did. Caroline studied him for a long beat, then she reached for the clipboard and flipped a page, scanning her own list. "You mean one of the founders' names," Caroline said, thinking out loud. "Because I have a lot of names, and if one of them is doing something to your brain, I would really like to know which one so I can stab it." Stefan almost laughed. Almost. Then his face tightened again. Caroline's expression shifted. "Okay, that's it. You're coming with me to the gym office. We have old files, old programs, old photo books, and I have a very unhealthy level of access to locked cabinets." Stefan shook his head. "Caroline, you don't need to do this." Caroline's voice went flat. "Yes, I do. Because you are doing the thing where you disappear to protect people. and I'm not letting you do that. Not today. Stefan's stomach turned, because Damon's words from the basement flickered back. Try not to find anything you can't forget. And now Caroline was offering him a whole room full of things meant to be remembered. He should have said no. Instead, he nodded once. Caroline's shoulders relaxed slightly. Then she pointed at a box near the bottom shelf. "Grab that," Caroline said. "That's the photo albums, and if you drop them I will actually cry." Stefan lifted the box, heavier than it looked, and as he did, something slid inside. A loose item, paper against paper. A folded program slipped out and fluttered to the floor. Caroline started to reach for it, but Stefan's hand moved first. He picked it up, opened it, and saw a handwritten note in the margin. Old ink, sharp letters. A style he recognised even before he admitted it. Damon's handwriting. Stefan's throat tightened. Caroline noticed his face and said, "What is it?" Stefan stared at the note, then forced his voice steady, as if steady could make this harmless. "It's nothing," Stefan said, but the paper in his hand felt like proof, and he could already feel the hatred building again, slow, certain, because Damon was in this, Damon was in the margins, Damon was in the missing space between what Stefan felt and what Stefan remembered. Caroline's eyes sharpened. "Stefan, that is not nothing!" Stefan folded the program carefully and slid it into his jacket pocket, and when he looked at Caroline, his expression was calm. Too calm. "I need to check something," Stefan said, and he did not say Damon's name, but it hovered between them anyway. Caroline stepped closer. Voice low. "Stefan, tell me you're not about to run off alone." Stefan held her gaze for one beat, then said, "I'll be careful." Caroline's jaw clenched. That is not an answer. Stefan turned toward the door, and the box of photo albums sat on the floor like it had just opened a path he could not close again. Caroline followed him anyway, because Caroline always followed, especially when the people she cared about tried to disappear. Elena Gilbert stood outside a campus building with a folder in her hands, scanning a printed schedule like it was a problem she could solve by staring at it harder. Students moved around her, normal and human, rushing to classes and complaining about exams like the worst thing in the world was a bad grade. Damon leaned against a stone column nearby, looking bored, which meant he was listening to everything. Elena exhaled and said, "I'm going to be late." Damon glanced at the paper and said, "You're already late, so technically you're consistent." Elena shot him a look. "This is a Whitmore event. The department chair is going to be there, and I signed up for this weeks ago." Damon's mouth twitched. "I love watching you pretend you're a normal college student. It's adorable." Elena lowered her voice. "Don't, Damon." Damon's smile softened slightly, and he pushed off the column. "Fine. I'll behave. I'll just stand here and look like your suspiciously attractive bodyguard." Elena tried not to smile, tried and failed a little. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down, read the message, and her expression changed, subtle, fast. Damon noticed. "That's Stefan," he said, not asking. Elena's eyes lifted. "It's Caroline," she said, and her voice had that careful edge. The one that meant something was wrong but not fully explained yet. Damon's posture shifted, just a fraction, the boredom slipping. Elena looked at him. Something's going on with Stefan. Damon's gaze tightened, and for a moment his face went too blank. Elena watched him and said, quietly, Damon forced a small shrug. "What?" Elena held her phone tighter. "You know what?" Damon looked away toward the campus lawn, then back, and the joke that usually saved him did not show up. Elena's stomach dropped slightly. Because the last time Damon went quiet like that, it meant the problem had roots, and Damon had already tried to handle it alone. And somewhere in Mystic Falls, Stefan was digging. The air on campus smelled like wet grass and coffee. Normal things, the kind of normal Mystic Falls never got to keep. Elena kept her face calm, but her eyes stayed on Damon, because she had learned the difference between his bored mask and the moments when something underneath it was tightening. "You're doing it again," Elena said. Damon glanced at her. "Breathing?" "No," Elena replied, the quiet thing. Damon's mouth twitched like he wanted a joke, and then he did not take it. That alone felt like a confession. Elena stepped closer, lowering her voice so passing students would only hear a couple being mildly dramatic, not two vampires discussing memory theft. "Tell me what this is about," Elena said, steady, not details, just is Stefan in danger? Damon's jaw worked once. "Stefan is Stefan," he said, like that explained everything. Elena did not move. Damon. He looked away toward the campus lawn again, then back, and the silence stretched too long to be accidental. Elena's stomach dropped slightly. Because the last time Damon went quiet like that, it meant the problem had roots, and Damon had already tried to handle it alone. And somewhere in Mystic Falls, Stefan was digging. Elena took a slow breath. "Did you do something?" she asked, voice low to protect him. Damon's eyes flicked to hers. "You're getting ahead of yourself." Elena's voice stayed calm. "That's a yes." Damon exhaled through his nose, frustrated. "It's a maybe," he said, then corrected himself. It was complicated." Elena held his gaze. "Complicated like you broke something, or complicated like you saved him." Damon's mouth tightened. "Both. That landed hard enough." Elena stopped blinking for a beat. Damon glanced around, then leaned closer. "We're leaving," he said firm. Elena's brows lifted. "Right now." Damon nodded. "Right now," he repeated, then added, "And before you argue, it is not because I'm trying to control you, it is because Stefan plus digging equals blood on the floor, and I'm not in the mood to mop." Elena's voice sharpened. "Stop avoiding the point." Damon's expression went flat. "The point is, if Stefan remembers the wrong thing at the wrong time, he will do something stupid." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Like what?" Damon hesitated, and that hesitation was a crack. Elena watched him. "Damon, what did Stefan forget?" Damon's gaze tightened. "A person," he said, and the word sounded like it tasted bad. Elena's throat went dry. "A person he loved." Damon did not answer, but his silence confirmed it. Elena swallowed. "How is that even possible?" Damon's voice dropped. "It shouldn't be," he said, then paused, "but it is." Elena took a step back, trying to steady herself. "If Caroline is with him," she said, "she'll keep him from spiralling." Damon's smile flashed briefly, sharp and tired. "Caroline tries," he said, then added, "but Stefan can be very convincing when he's determined to ruin his own life." Elena's phone buzzed, a message from Caroline, short and tense. Elena read it, then looked up. "She says Stefan is having gaps," Elena said, "that he's reacting to things he can't explain." Damon's jaw clenched. Then it started. Elena's eyes widened. "Started what?" Damon did not answer. He grabbed Elena's hand, not rough, but urgent, and steered her toward the parking lot like he could outrun the past by driving fast. Elena pulled her hand back, not angry, just firm. "Damon, you cannot drag me away and keep secrets." Damon stopped, turned, and for a second his expression was bare. "I'm not keeping secrets for fun," Damon said quietly. "I'm keeping them because Stefan doesn't just remember things. Elena, he feels them. And when he feels this, he's going to break." Elena stared at him. "And you think you can stop him?" Damon's voice dropped. "I already tried," he said. Elena's heart sank. Damon looked away, then back. "Get in the car," he said. and this time it sounded less like an order and more like a plea. Elena nodded once, then got in. Damon walked around to the driver's side, and as he slid behind the wheel, his hand tightened on the steering wheel like it was the only thing steady in his life. He started the car, and the engine's hum filled the silence. Elena watched him for a long moment, then spoke softly. "If you hurt him," she said, "I will not forgive you." Damon's laugh was quiet, humourless. "Join the club," he murmured, and then he drove. Caroline spread out supplies across the desk like she was building a war plan. Flyers, donation forms, old photo albums, a binder of Founders Day history, and a plastic bag of ribbon that looked harmless until it became a weapon in Caroline's hands. "Okay," Caroline said. "Brisk, we have a theme, we have a schedule, we have 3 volunteers, and one of them is technically a kleptomaniac. But it's fine. Because I'm watching him." Stefan stood beside the desk, hands in his pockets, trying to look present, trying to look like he was just helping Caroline with a school project, not trying to patch a hole in his own mind. Caroline glanced up at him. "You're doing the quiet thing," she said. Stefan blinked. "What quiet thing?" Caroline lifted an eyebrow. "The thing where you stare at paper like it's going to confess," she said, then tapped a flyer. "Here, be helpful. Cut these." Stefan reached for the scissors, and Caroline watched his hands like she was checking for tremors. Stefan started cutting. Clean lines, steady movement, normal. Caroline opened the binder again, flipping to a page with an old program list. "We need the sponsor names for the display," she said, then added, "because people in Mystic Falls love their ancestors more than they love their children." Stefan's scissors paused. Caroline noticed instantly. "Stefan," he forced them to move again. "I'm fine." Caroline's voice went flatter. "No, you're not," she said. "And you're not going to lie to me today." Stefan kept cutting. "I'm not lying." Caroline leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Then explain why you flinched when I said sponsors." Stefan's jaw tightened. "I didn't flinch." Caroline stared at him, unimpressed. "Stefan, I am a vampire," she said. "I hear your heartbeat stutter." Stefan exhaled slowly, then looked away. "It's nothing." Caroline's eyes narrowed. "Nothing in Mystic Falls is never nothing." She flipped another page and paused on a taped-in photo. Old, slightly crooked, like someone had added it later. Caroline frowned. "That wasn't here yesterday," she muttered. Stefan's gaze snapped to it before he could stop himself. The picture showed the gym decades ago, decorated for an event. Strings of lights, stiff smiles, old suits. And near the edge, almost like an accident, there was a familiar face. Stefan, younger, softer. Next to him, a girl. Caroline watched Stefan's face change, the way it went still. Stefan stared at the girl, and the pressure at his temple returned, stronger now. Caroline's voice softened without losing focus. "Do you recognise her?" Stefan's mouth opened, and nothing came out. It was not that he did not know, it was that he could not reach it. Stefan swallowed. "No," he said, and his voice sounded wrong. Caroline moved closer. "Your eyes are lying." Stefan's hands tightened around the scissors. "I don't remember her," he said. Caroline's expression shifted. "Okay," she said slowly, "so that's the truth." Stefan stared at the girl again, and for a second the world blurred, and he caught a scent. Faint. Impossible. Lavender, iron and smoke. He blinked hard and it vanished. Caroline grabbed his wrist gently. "Stefan, breathe," she said, steady. "Look at me." Stefan forced his eyes to hers. Caroline kept her tone calm. "Tell me what you just felt." Stefan swallowed again. "Nothing," he lied automatically, then corrected himself, because Caroline did not deserve that. "A smell," he admitted. "And blood." Caroline's face tightened. "Okay," she said, and her voice went practical, the way it did when fear tried to creep in. "We need a name." Stefan looked down at the photo. The back corner had a date stamped, the year clear. Caroline turned it over carefully. On the back, in black ink, was a name, written in neat handwriting, not Damon's. Caroline read it silently first, then looked up. "I'm not saying it out loud," she said. Stefan's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Caroline held the photo between two fingers like it was dangerous. "Because if this is compulsion, and Damon left warnings about names," she said, "then there is a reason." Stefan's stomach tightened. "Damon," Caroline's eyes flicked to him. "You still haven't told me what happened last night," she said. Stefan's jaw clenched. "I found something," he said carefully. Caroline's posture changed. "What?" Stefan hesitated, then chose the smallest truth. "A recorder," he said with Damon's voice. Caroline's eyes widened slightly. "And you didn't tell me," she said, then exhaled. "Okay, that tracks. Because you're Stefan." Stefan's voice stayed flat. "He knew I found it," Caroline swallowed. "Okay," she said again, and her tone hardened. "Then we do this right, we find the paper trail, we find the name, we find anything physical, and we do not confront Damon until we have enough to stop him from twisting it." Stefan's eyes sharpened. "He won't twist it," Caroline's voice dropped. "Stefan, Damon twists everything," she said, then softened. "Sometimes to protect people, sometimes to protect himself. And right now I don't know which." Stefan stared at the photo until his head felt tight. Caroline picked up her clipboard. "Sheriff station," she said. Stefan's brows knit. "Liz." Caroline nodded. "My mother keeps files. And files don't forget," she said, then added. "And if someone went in and pulled records, that leaves a trace too." Stefan looked at the photo again, then slipped it into his jacket carefully, like it could be stolen by air. Caroline watched him. "And you're not going alone," she said firm. Stefan's jaw tightened. "I wasn't planning on it." Caroline's eyes narrowed. "Liar," she said, and then she walked toward the door anyway, like the argument was already over. Stefan followed. The station was busy in the way small towns were busy, phones ringing, deputies moving, people filing complaints that were not about vampires, not out loud anyway. Caroline marched in with Stefan beside her, clipboard in hand, and the expression of someone who was about to make authority cooperate. Sheriff Forbes glanced up, her eyes instantly scanning Caroline's face, then Stefan's. Caroline smiled bright and fake. "Hi, Mum." Liz's eyes narrowed. "Caroline," she said, "why do you look like you're about to rewrite our filing system?" Caroline's smile stayed in place. "Because someone did," she said. Liz blinked. "What?" Caroline lowered her voice and leaned in. "We need an old record," she said, "and I think someone removed parts of it." Liz's gaze slid to Stefan, and her tone softened slightly. "Stefan, are you okay?" Stefan nodded once. "I'm fine." Liz gave him a look that said she did not believe him, but she also knew better than to push him in public. "All right," Liz said, standing. "Back room." Caroline followed her into the records room, Stefan behind her, and the air changed, cooler, quieter, paper and dust and old secrets. Liz unlocked a cabinet and pulled out a drawer. "Give me the year," she said. Caroline glanced at Stefan, then down at the back of the photo without speaking the name. 1952, she said. Liz frowned. "That's specific." Caroline nodded. "It is." Liz started flipping through files, her movements practiced. Caroline watched closely, and Stefan stood still, listening to the paper shuffle like it was a countdown. Liz stopped abruptly. Caroline leaned in. "What?" Liz pulled the drawer farther out and frowned. "There's a gap," she said. Caroline's stomach dropped. "How big?" Liz's expression hardened. "Big enough that I should have noticed," she said, then added, "and I'm good at noticing missing things." Stefan's jaw tightened. Someone took it. Liz looked at him. If someone removed files, it would have required access, she said carefully. Caroline's voice went cold. Like a key. Liz glanced at her. Like a sheriff's key, she said. Caroline's eyes widened slightly. Mum. Liz exhaled. Not me, she said quickly, then added, but there were other people with access before I was sheriff. Caroline leaned closer, voice urgent. Can you check the sign-out log? Liz frowned. We don't have a formal sign-out log for that far back, she said, then paused, but we do have an archive index. Liz moved to another cabinet, pulled out a thick binder, and started flipping pages. Caroline watched Stefan, who was staring at the binder like it might give him his memory back if he stared hard enough. Liz stopped on a page and tapped it. There, she said quietly. Caroline leaned in. A record number, a name, a case type, then a note beside it in faded ink. Redacted. Caroline's throat tightened. Who wrote that? Liz scanned the margin. Initials, she said. Caroline narrowed her eyes. Whose initials? Liz hesitated, then said, Not mine. Stefan's voice came out low. Read the name, he said, and it sounded like a command he was trying not to make. Liz looked at him. Stefan, she said gently, I don't know what this is, but I know when you're about to do something reckless. Stefan held her gaze. Please, he said, and the word was quiet, but heavy. Caroline stepped in fast. Don't say it out loud, she told her mum, firm. Just write it down. Liz looked between them, then nodded slowly, pulled a pen, and wrote the name on a small piece of paper, then slid it across the desk. Stefan stared at the paper, and the moment his eyes hit the letters, the pressure at his temple spiked. The room tilted, and for half a second he heard a sound, distant but clear. A woman laughing. Then a scream cut short. Stefan's hand slammed onto the desk hard enough the pen jumped. Caroline grabbed his wrist. Stefan, she said, sharp, breathe. Stefan blinked and the world snapped back, but his breathing was wrong. Liz's face tightened. Okay, she said quietly, this is not a school project. Caroline's voice softened slightly. No, she admitted. Liz looked at Stefan. Is someone messing with your head, she asked. Stefan's jaw clenched. Yes, he said, and it was the first honest word he had said all day. Liz exhaled slowly. All right, she said, and her tone turned official. If there is a case file missing, I can request it from state archives, she said, then added, but it will take time. Caroline shook her head. We don't have time, she said. Liz frowned. Why? Caroline glanced at Stefan. Because Stefan is remembering, she said, and her voice trembled slightly, and if he remembers wrong or too fast, something bad happens. Liz looked at her daughter, then at Stefan, and her expression softened, maternal and fierce. Caroline, Liz said quietly, you call me if this gets dangerous. Caroline nodded. I will. Liz tapped the index. There is one thing, she said, flipping another page. A burial record, she murmured, then looked up. Cemetery has the ledger. Caroline's eyes sharpened. Cemetery, she repeated. Liz nodded. If you want something physical, that's where it is, she said, then added. And Caroline, take someone with you. Caroline looked at Stefan like the sentence was for him too. We're going together, she said. Stefan stared at the written name again, and his throat tightened. He folded the paper carefully and slipped it into his pocket like it could cut him. Caroline turned toward the door, already moving. We go now, she said. Stefan followed, jaw tight, mind louder. Behind them, Liz watched them leave, and her expression was the kind of worried she usually saved for storms and missing kids. Because this was not just Stefan digging, this was something digging back. The sky had brightened, but Mystic Falls still felt like it was holding its breath. Caroline drove fast, one hand on the wheel, the other tapping the clipboard on her thigh, like it was keeping her in control. Stefan sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, not seeing the road, seeing flashes that were not fully formed. Caroline glanced at him. "Talk," she said. Stefan did not answer. Caroline's voice sharpened. "Stefan," she said, "you don't get to go silent and pretend you're fine. Not when you almost slammed your hand through my mother's desk." Stefan swallowed. "I heard her," he said quietly. Caroline's grip tightened on the wheel. "You heard who?" Stefan's jaw clenched. "The girl," he said, and his voice sounded like it hurt. "Laughing." Caroline nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, steady, "that's a crack, not the whole wall." Stefan looked at her, eyes hard. "Damon did this," he said. Caroline kept her voice calm. "We don't know that," she said, then corrected herself. "We know Damon is involved. We don't know why." Stefan's expression tightened. Why matters less than what? Caroline glanced at him, then back to the road. "No," she said. "Firm. Why matters? Because if he did this to save you, your hate is going to destroy you when you find out." Stefan's jaw clenched harder. "He doesn't get to decide what I can handle." Caroline's voice dropped. "Sometimes he thinks he has to," she said, and the sentence sounded too familiar, like she had watched Damon do it 100 times. Stefan stared out the window again. Caroline took a slow breath. "Rules," she said. "We get the cemetery ledger, we get the plot, we get something real, then we go back, and you do not confront Damon alone." Stefan's voice was flat. "I'm not promising that." Caroline's eyes flashed. "Then I'm not leaving you," she said. Stefan finally looked at her, and for a second something softened, because Caroline was stubborn in the way people were stubborn when they cared. Caroline kept driving, Stefan's fingers pressed into his temple, and the pressure answered back, steady, like a warning. Somewhere ahead, the cemetery waited, and Stefan could feel the truth sitting there, quiet, patient, ready to ruin him the second he touched it. The cemetery gate groaned as Caroline pushed it open, the sound stretching across the quiet like it did not care about timing. The air felt heavier here, damp and cool, the sky a flat grey that made the stones look older than they were. Stefan stepped through and paused for a moment, not because he wanted to, but because his body did. Like something inside him recognised the place faster than his mind did. Caroline watched him, eyes sharp. "Remember, we're here to check a ledger and a patch of ground," she said softly. "That's it. No solo trauma dives." Stefan gave a small nod, eyes already drifting across the rows of headstones. Right. They walked the narrow path, gravel crunching under their shoes. Family names passed them by, founders and people who thought they were important once. The further they went, the quieter it felt, like the town noise could not get this far. Near the back, a low shed sat under a leaning oak tree, half swallowed by shadow. Caroline headed straight for it. Inside, it smelled like damp paper and oil. A metal cabinet leaned against the wall with a crooked label that simply read records. Caroline opened it and pulled out a ledger with dates handwritten down the spine. She flipped to the right year, fingers moving fast but careful, lips pressed together in a thin line. "There," she murmured. Her finger tapped a line. Stefan moved closer. He did not need her to say the name. He could see it. The letters slid into his head like they had been there once and had been waiting to wake up. Beside it, a plot number, and under remarks, one word in darker ink. Unmarked. Caroline's jaw tightened. "That's deliberate," she said quietly. Somebody did not want anyone standing over her with a bouquet and questions. Stefan stared at the word until it blurred. "Or they wanted me to forget where to feel guilty," he said. Caroline closed the ledger and pulled out her phone to snap a picture of the page. Now we know, she said, tucking the phone away. Let's go find the spot, then we leave. No dramatics. Stefan gave another nod, but his shoulders had gone rigid. Outside, Caroline used the plot number to guide them through the rows. They left the neat stones behind and moved toward the older section near the tree line, where some markers had cracked and others were gone completely. She slowed. Here, she said. There was no stone, no flowers, just a bare patch of ground between two older markers, the grass thinner and uneven, like it had never quite settled. Stefan stopped at the edge of it. The air felt different here, tighter, like a held breath. He took one step forward. The pressure in his head sharpened. Not a sharp stab, but a slow turn of a screw, each second tightening. The world around him seemed to muffle, the wind dimming, the distant road sound flattening until there was only the soft rustle of leaves and the thump of his own heartbeat. Caroline glanced at him quickly. "Stefan," she said, voice low. "Talk to me. Tell me what you're feeling." His eyes stayed on the ground. "Like I've been here before," he said quietly. "Many times." He closed his eyes, not to escape, but to let the pressure push through. Images did not hit him like a movie. It was slower, messier, light, faint and warm, like late evening sun on a porch. A girl's laugh, not loud, more like someone trying not to wake neighbours. Music from a radio somewhere, a song he could not place, just the rhythm lodged in his bones. Then the smell changed, smoke, sharp and thin, not a big fire. Something small, burning, in a kitchen. Under it, another scent. Metallic and familiar. Blood. Stefan's fingers curled at his sides. His throat tightened, a flash of hands, his own, not gentle, gripping too hard. The feel of someone's pulse under his touch, racing then breaking. He flinched. Caroline saw it and moved in closer. "Stefan, open your eyes," she said, steady. "Stay here with me." He opened them, and the cemetery came back into focus. But the echoes did not leave. They sat under his skin, buzzing. "She was human," he said, voice rough. Caroline swallowed. "Okay," she answered, careful, not asking more. "She trusted me," Stefan added, and the way he said it hurt more than any detail. His gaze dropped back to the bare patch. "I remember being hungry," he said. "Not new, not surprising. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could handle everything." Caroline tightened her grip on his arm. "You lost control," she said softly. She did not make it a question. He nodded once. "But that's not what's missing," Stefan went on, eyes distant. "I remember the moment. I remember the blood. I remember her name." His jaw clenched. "What I don't remember is what I did after." Caroline frowned slightly. "After?" Stefan looked at her, eyes dark. "The spiral," he said. "The part where I hate myself more than usual. The part where I go ripper and then disappear before anyone can fix me." Caroline's breath hitched. "You think that was the part Damon erased?" Stefan looked back at the earth. "I think I've carried the fact that I killed her all this time," he said, voice low, "but not the full weight of who I turned into afterward. That is what feels hollow." Caroline let that settle. The wind picked up slightly, brushing leaves against stone. "So right now," she said slowly, "you're standing on the grave of someone you know you killed, and you're only half haunted." Stefan gave a humourless breath of a laugh at that, because it was true and it was awful. "Yes," he said. Caroline watched his face, reading every small shift. "Do you want to remember everything?" she asked quietly. Stefan did not answer immediately. His gaze lingered on the unmarked ground, then drifted to the trees. "Part of me does," he admitted. "The part that thinks punishment equals honesty." Caroline's voice turned gentle. "And the other part?" He exhaled slowly. "Knows I've spent a century proving I can drown in guilt without getting better," he said. "Maybe Damon decided one time was enough." Caroline's eyes softened at that. "That sounds like him," she said, then added, "Still not sure it was his choice to make." Stefan nodded once. It wasn't. They stood there a few seconds more, not in silence exactly, but in a shared pause. Caroline finally squeezed his arm. "We got what we came for," she said. "You have enough of the memory to know it was real. You have her grave. You have the name. You don't need to open every wound today." Stefan stepped back from the patch of ground like he was easing out of a tight grip. The pressure in his head eased a little. Not gone, just less demanding. "Let's go," he said. Caroline looked at the bare earth one last time, the unmarked line in the ledger echoing in her mind, then turned and walked away beside him. The grave did not change. No stone rose up, no name appeared. But it was seen. For now, that was enough. The house was quiet in the way old houses were, every creak already familiar, every shadow expected. Stefan moved through it without slowing, Caroline just behind him. Instead of heading for the library, he turned toward the door that led downstairs. Caroline blinked. "Basement," she said. "We're skipping the library." "Too many windows there," Stefan replied. "Too much noise." Caroline nodded and followed him down. The basement smelled like stone, dust, and old wood, with a faint trace of dried blood long since cleaned, but never fully gone. Damon was already there. He stood near a table, a bottle beside him, glass untouched. His posture was relaxed on purpose, which told Caroline everything. "Well," Damon said, eyes landing on Stefan, then Caroline. "Field trip went well, I see. Did you enjoy the scenic tour of bad decisions?" Caroline ignored the jab. Stefan did not bother. "We went to the cemetery," Stefan said. "We went to her grave." Damon's jaw tightened, just a fraction. "So you found it?" "Yes," Stefan said, calm, unmarked, like you wanted. Damon picked up the glass and set it back down without drinking. "I didn't ask for the stone," he said. "That was the town." "And the records," Caroline added. "And the missing notes. And the redacted file. And the part where my mum's system suddenly pretends she never lived." Damon's eyes slid to Caroline briefly. "You brought the sheriff into this," he said. Caroline folded her arms. "She brought herself into this," she answered. "I just let her." Stefan stepped closer, and the air in the room shifted. "I remember enough," he said, eyes fixed on Damon. "Not everything, just enough to know I killed her, and that it broke me." Damon's face stayed still, but his eyes changed. "Then stop there," Stefan's gaze sharpened. "No," he said, "we're done pretending I can live inside a blank space you built." Damon took a breath, and for a moment he looked older, not by years, by weight. "You want the truth," Damon said quietly. Stefan nodded. "Yes." Damon glanced at Caroline. "You sure you want an audience?" he asked. Caroline did not move. "He's not doing this alone," she said. "Get used to it," Damon sighed. "Fine," he said. He set the glass aside properly this time and leaned back against the table. "It wasn't one night," Damon began. His voice was calm, more factual than dramatic. "You didn't lose control once. You were in a ripper cycle, and she got caught in it." Stefan's eyes closed briefly, then opened again. "How long?" he asked. "Days," Damon said. "Maybe a week, maybe less," it blurred. "You were trying to be good again. You thought loving her would fix you. Then you slipped. You tried to stop. You didn't. It kept getting worse." He looked Stefan in the eye. You came to me after," Damon went on. "You were covered in blood and you could barely stand. You said you couldn't live with it, that you were going to make sure nobody else did either. You were going to burn through anyone you could find, and then yourself." Caroline swallowed hard at that. Stefan stood very still. "So I did what I always do," Damon said. "I tried to stop the fallout by calling Rebecca," Caroline said, piecing it together. Damon nodded once. "She owed me a favour," he said. "And she knows compulsion better than most. I asked her to take enough." Stefan's voice came out thin. "Enough." Damon nodded. "Not the act," he said. "You needed to live with that. You needed to know you were capable of it. What we took was the spiral that followed. The part where you tore through anyone who tried to help. The part where you tried to make me kill you because you were too much of a coward to do it yourself." Caroline's face tightened. "Damon." He shrugged slightly, not at her, at himself. He asked. Damon said quietly. "I don't lie about the ugly parts when he asks." Stefan stared at him, breathing unsteady now, but his voice stayed low. "So you let Rebecca climb into my head." "I begged her to," Damon corrected softly. "You were not thinking. You were not choosing. You were drowning and dragging everyone with you. She went in, she took the worst of it, she adjusted the edges, she left enough guilt so you didn't turn into some carefree sociopath. And then you woke up not wanting to end the world over one horror." Stefan's throat worked. "You decided my limit," he said. Damon nodded. "Yes," he said simply, "because you didn't have one then." The room was quiet for a long moment. The only sound was the faint hum of the house above them, and Caroline's controlled breathing beside Stefan. Caroline spoke, her voice softer but clear. "You erased the part where he broke," she said. "Not the part where he did it." Damon looked at her. "Exactly," he said. Stefan let that sink in. The pressure in his head felt different now. Less like a block, more like a bruise. "So all this time," he said slowly, "I've lived with the knowledge that I killed her, but not the memory of begging you to let me die." Damon nodded once. Stefan exhaled, a slow, shaking breath. "You think that makes it better?" "No," Damon said. "I think it stopped you from going Ripper again every time you remembered her. You still carry the weight. Just not the part that crushes the building on everybody else." Caroline looked between them, eyes bright. "Morally, this is a disaster," she said. "Emotionally, I understand it. That is very annoying." Damon huffed out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Welcome to life with us," he said. Stefan turned away for a second, running a hand through his hair, pulling in air he did not need. When he turned back, his eyes were clearer, but his expression hurt. "You did not give me a choice," he said quietly. Damon did not argue. "I know." Stefan's voice stayed calm. "And now I have one." Damon's posture shifted. "What do you mean? I could ask Rebecca to undo it," Stefan said. "To give me everything back. All of it. The nights. The rage. The self-hatred. The begging. The part of me you decided I could not carry." Caroline's eyes widened a fraction. "Stefan," he kept going. "I could decide that I deserve to feel all of it," he said. "Every frame. Every second." Damon's jaw clenched. "And what then?" he asked, voice low. "You think you walk away from that a better man? You think you don't blow up everyone around you again?" Stefan looked at him. "That's the point," he said. "This time, it would be my choice." Caroline stepped in, gentle but firm. "You're not that man anymore," she said. "You have control now because you've built it, not because somebody cleaned up your brain. You are already living with the fact that you killed her. You're already changing because of that. You don't need to pick at every scar until it bleeds." Stefan's gaze flicked to her, then back to Damon. Would I have stopped, Stefan asked quietly, if you hadn't done it? If Rebecca hadn't done it? Would I have stopped on my own? Damon looked away, then back. He did not smile. He did not joke. He just answered. I don't know, Damon said, and I was not willing to bet your life or anybody else's on the chance that you might. Stefan studied him. The anger was still there, but it had shifted. It was not the bright, wild fury of betrayal. It was something slower, deeper, twisted together with understanding. I am not okay with what you did, Stefan said. Damon nodded. I don't expect you to be. But, Stefan added, I know why you did it. That quiet sentence landed heavier than a shout. Damon's eyes dropped for a moment. When he looked up again, there was a thin crack in his posture, something like relief and hurt mixed together. Caroline exhaled slowly. So, she said, what do you choose? Stefan thought about the unmarked grave, the laugh, the blood, the missing spiral, the years he had spent trying to be better without knowing every awful detail. I know enough, he said finally. Enough to honour her. Enough to be careful with who I let close. Enough to keep trying to be better than the worst night of my life. His voice softened. I don't need to relive every second of who I was when I wanted to destroy everything. I already know what I'm capable of. That's enough. Caroline's shoulders lowered a fraction, some tension easing. Damon watched him for a long moment, then said quietly, then I'll live with what I did too. Stefan gave a small nod. You always do, he said. There was no hug, no sudden warmth, just 3 people in a basement, each holding a different piece of the same story. It was not forgiveness. It was something like peace that still hurt when you breathed on it. Caroline touched Stefan's arm lightly. Come on, she said. You've been in the dark long enough today. He let her lead him up the stairs. Damon stayed in the basement a little longer, alone with the bottle and the ghosts he had chosen all by himself. The campus looked softer at night. The harsh edges of buildings turned to shadows, the lights warm instead of bright. Students crossed the quad in small groups, laughing, talking, carrying books as if midterms were the worst thing in the world. Elena sat on a bench under a tree, jacket pulled tight against the chill. Damon dropped down beside her, hands in his pockets. You're late, Elena said. Had a family meeting, Damon replied. Elena looked at him, reading his face. The edges were sharper tonight, but his eyes were tired rather than wild. How did it go, she asked. Damon shrugged one shoulder. He hates me slightly less than before, he said. Which, on the Salvatore scale, is practically a hug. Elena did not smile. You told him? Enough, Damon said. Not everything, just the parts that belonged to him. Elena's brow furrowed. And the rest? Damon looked out across the quad. Some of it belongs to me, he said quietly. Some of it belongs to people who are not here to argue. I'm not handing all of that out like party favours. Elena nodded, accepting that. Is he okay? Damon considered that for a moment. No, he said. But he's standing. He chose not to chase the pain just because he could. That's progress for a Salvatore. Elena leaned back against the bench, studying him. You did what you always do, she said. You protected him by breaking something. Damon tilted his head slightly. You say that like it's a bad thing. It is, Elena replied, and it isn't. He looked at her, amused and tired. You're getting very good at moral contradictions, she gave a small smile. I learned from the best. Damon's mouth twitched. He looked back at the students crossing the quad. He'll never say it, Damon said. But he understands. That's enough. For you, Elena asked. Damon was quiet for a moment. For now, he said. Elena slipped her hand through his, fingers lacing with his. She did not ask for more details. She did not ask for the girl's name. She just held on. Sometimes that was the only answer that did not make things worse. Later, the cemetery lay in its usual uneasy peace. Streetlights from the road painted a faint glow along the iron fence, throwing long shadows over the grass. Stefan walked slowly along the outside of the fence, hands in his jacket pockets. Caroline walked beside him, matching his pace without comment. They did not go back inside. They did not need to. The knowledge of the unmarked patch under the oak was enough. "Do you feel lighter?" Caroline asked quietly after a while. Stefan thought about it. "No," he said. "Just clearer." Caroline nodded. "Clear can be good," she said. Even if it hurts, he watched the headstones passing by. Names he knew, names he did not. "I've spent a lot of time believing that the only honest way to live was to drown in every bad thing I've ever done," Stefan said. "Like if I let myself forget even one detail, I was cheating." Caroline listened. But standing there today, he went on, it felt different. Like I was not being asked to deny what I did, just to stop tearing the wound open every time I breathed. Caroline's lips curved slightly. "That sounds suspiciously like growth," she said. He gave a faint smile at that. "Don't get used to it." They walked a few more steps. "Some memories don't make us better," Stefan said finally, voice soft. "They just make us louder." Caroline glanced at him. "And this one?" "This one already did its job," Stefan answered. "It changed me once. I don't need to let it run my life every time it knocks." Caroline nodded. "Then we let it knock from behind a fence," she said, gesture hinting at the iron bars beside them. "You know it's there. You know what you're capable of. You walk away anyway." Stefan looked through the fence toward the oak tree in the distance, where the unmarked patch slept unseen by anyone who did not know where to look. "I can live with that," he said. Caroline bumped her shoulder lightly against his. "Good," she replied, "because you have a lot of life left to mess up in new ways." He huffed out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Thanks for the optimism. Any time," she said. They kept walking, two figures following the curve of the fence, while Mystic Falls sat behind them, pretty and lying, as always. The unmarked grave remained unmarked. The past stayed real, but not in charge. And for once, that was enough. Comment your take on Stefan's final decision, right choice or tragic mistake, and subscribe for more Vampire Diaries stories. Goodbye.